Hello everyone, welcome back to another video and my brush cherry that also has a Latin name that I will put here because I can never pronounce it, but you will see how it is written and can then try to pronounce it yourself. This video is about this brush cherry that I have had now for roughly half a year, I would say. So I bought it late in growth season, maybe middle of growth season actually, I think about August. If I'm not lying right now, I would say I bought it in August. Now January, so half a year roughly, in which I've had this in my home now. It had some new growth, definitely, still last growth season. And now in winter, what I've noticed is that some of these tips of the late growth have died back. So what I mainly want to do today is go in a bit, take out some of the dieback tips in the tree that you can see, and still simply talk a bit about the tree. As I said, it is a brush cherry. It is quite commonly used for bonsai, especially here, of course, in more temperate climates for indoor bonsai. And it is one of the species that are a bit more finicky, I would say. So they do not forgive as easily as, for example, a ficus would. And they're also a bit more prone to simply, I would say, harsher reactions when they're not treated in the correct way. But until now, I must say, I actually didn't have that many problems with it. It is going quite strong, as I said, only some dieback that I've seen now over the cold season. You can see it, for example, here. You simply have then some of the leaves dry out and fall off. And of course, it leaves a bare stem that I simply want to go around the tree today and take out some of it while still talking a bit about the tree. So it's basically a light prune that I will give it, but not everywhere. For example, you can see here, there is new growth that is very healthy, that's coming in quite strong also now in winter. Of course, I will not touch that one and I will leave it on. But there is other growth, like up here where you can simply see it already starting to die back, losing the color basically of the new leaves, and then they brown and fall off. So instead of having them fall off one by one, I will simply try to take out, as I said, the tips where it already fell off, but also tips where I can see it going in that direction, which are a couple, definitely. I think it basically boils down to me having had it in a bit too dry of a condition for a bit, which it did react quite harshly to, and that is basically the outcome of it now. So it definitely, what I can see is that it starts to lose leaves from the tips, so it has not dropped any from the bottom, not really at least. Maybe from some of the side branches a bit more, as you can see, for example, here there's some dry ones on it still. But the main dieback was definitely on the tips. And it was very sporadically. You can also see, I can show you, it has collected some of the dieback leaves here also in the pot that I will clean out. Simply getting it a bit ready again for hopefully soon starting a new growth season, which of course if you keep it indoors always starts a bit earlier, simply when you have more days again with sunshine. I can already see now on this one new growth forming, and on many other trees actually also. This side here actually, it seems, was hit a bit harder than the rest. So I think I had it above my heater, which of course means very dry air that it was basically situated or located in, and I think that really was quite detrimental to the health of the tree. And as I said, it does react quite harshly to environments that are not fully to its liking. So it's definitely in that way a good sign of the tree, because it at least gives you a sign right away if something is wrong and you can react accordingly. So I basically moved it a bit away, make sure it is not in too dry air the entire time, but while at the same time still getting enough sunlight, and also of course watering it quite periodically, simply when I see the top of the soil drying out. And up until now it has very much enjoyed that. As I said, it's definitely more finicky, so I do spend more time looking at the health of this one than I would, for example, for my ficus trees, simply because I do see it does react, and when it reacts it's best to act accordingly right away and not wait too long, because then it might already be too late and you simply lose a lot of the foliage, which I definitely try to avoid at this point. But definitely a good time right now to simply go in, already take out some of the dieback that has formed to simply get it ready for next growth season again. Also, inside the tree there is some dieback that I can definitely see here also, so some older branches simply that have died back a bit. So now after finishing the tips, I would simply still go around the tree, also go a bit more, checking the inside to see what dieback there is. For example, here there's a small branch we can take out. Also, if you shake it, you can see still some of the dead leaves falling off that have collected, of course, inside. So let me just go a bit inside like this, give it a good shake. Also just like this, seeing how some of the dead leaves still fall out. Which, of course, best to get them out as soon as possible. There's no use in having them inside the foliage somewhere, just clogging up the rest of the foliage. But back to the task at hand, I can also see here there's dieback of some side branch. Also, let me see, this one is actually a healthy, nice looking side branch, a smaller one here still. So we will keep that one on. I can see some new growth even forming here, I would say, at the very beginning still. So hopefully it will result in some nice new growth. Here is some side branch we can also trim back a bit. The real pruning I will do at a later point. I think it's a bit too early still for that, so I will wait until really spring is just around the corner, and then I will go in, just clean up the trunk also a bit. For example, something like this here, some smaller branches that I have taken out before, where there is some part of it still here. I will take that out with garden shears at a later point, because right now, in the middle of cold season, it might be a bit too early still to work too much on the tree. I also wouldn't repot it, for example, at the moment. It's simply not the right time yet. It is probably something I will do this spring because it's still in the very muddy soil, I would call it now, that it came in, which is definitely not the best soil. It's not that well draining, and at the same time it dries out, in my liking, sometimes a bit too fast and a bit too unevenly also. So definitely that is something I will look into come spring. Also here I can see a lot of new growth forming, which I'm really happy to see. So I think it is set up for quite a nice growth season next spring. There is not too much dieback actually at the lower part, so I think we don't have to go in too much there. And as I said, I do not want to work too much on the tree. I don't want to stress it out too much, as it is quite stable right now. As I said, not too much new growth, which of course, outside of growth season, not all the trees still go strong at that point. I do have some ficus that actually have a lot of new growth, or also some jade plants that are growing quite vigorously now in winter. But this one definitely is in sort of a dormant state, I would say. So not too much new growth, and hopefully from this point onward also not too much dieback. Simply reserving all the energy for next growth season, and I'm fine with that, to be honest. So it doesn't have to grow all the time. I better like it if it has a dormant season and then gives me a nice, great growth season, which gives me then also a lot of opportunity to work on it again. So I take that definitely if it stays like this. I hope it gave you an idea of brush cherry. It is in a broom style, as most of them are actually, so you will find most often this very little nice cheerful trees in the broom style that I really like for this tree, because it has this tendency to grow upwards anyway. Then you can always prune it back to give it a shape. Other than that, as I said, a bit more finicky, but definitely it is able, you should be able to handle it, I would say. So if you just keep more close of an eye on it than you would on a ficus, for example, you should actually do quite well with the tree. And of course, it is also nice to have a tree that maybe needs a bit more care also, which of course gives you also the opportunity to work on it a bit more. If you have any question about brush cherry, if you have any ideas or any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I always love to see them. If you enjoyed this video, of course, also feel free to leave a like. And if you enjoy this channel, of course, also feel free to subscribe to it. Hopefully I will see you then in the next video. Until then, goodbye.